The infinite stretch of stars shimmered like scattered diamonds beyond the observation window of the Vanguard. Captain Jax Carter stood motionless, his eyes locked on the swirling, ethereal clouds of a nearby nebula. It was a breathtaking sight, but his mind drifted elsewhere. 6 grueling months in deep space, charting uncharted territories, had left him restless and craving for a distraction, anything to break the monotony. But what he got was far more than he had bargained for. "Captain," Lieutenant Maeve's voice pierced through the quiet hum of the bridge, her tone urgent yet steady, "we've picked up a strange signal." Her eyes, wide with curiosity and a tinge of unease, met his. Jax snapped out of his reverie, his instincts sharpening. "A signal." He approached her console. "From where?" Maeve's fingers flew over the holographic display, a cascade of data flowing in midair. "It's coming from a planet in the sector ahead. Rith 5, she reported. "The readings are unusual. It's supposed to be uninhabited. Toxic atmosphere. No life forms could possibly survive there." Jax's brow furrowed. "A distress signal?" "Yes, sir," Maeve confirmed, her voice a mix of curiosity and confusion. "But it's strange, the signal isn't from one species. It's a mix, a pattern that matches emergency codes from several known races." A chill crept up Jax's spine, but curiosity tugged harder. The Vanguard's mission was simple: explore, document, and survive. Yet the crew had grown tired, hungry for adventure. And a distress signal, an enigma in the vast, uncharted void, was a call too tempting to resist. "Plot a course," Jax commanded, his voice brimming with determination. "Let's see what we're dealing with." As the Vanguard turned toward Rith 5, an uneasy silence enveloped the bridge. The planet loomed closer on the ship's displays, an ominous sphere of swirling clouds and flashing storms. Rith 5 was notorious, marked as a hazardous location by every explorer who dared to document it. Toxic atmosphere. Violent, unpredictable electrical storms. Treacherous, ever-shifting terrain. A graveyard for the brave or foolish. Yet something, or someone, had sent out a call for help. Lightning crackled across Rith 5's surface as the ship entered orbit, illuminating the planet in blinding bursts. "Atmosphere is too dangerous for a full landing," Maeve warned, her face pale but resolute. "We'll need specialized suits. No one should go alone." Jax's jaw set with determination. "I'll go," he declared. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. Captain Carter was known for his daring and ingenuity. Fearless. Unyielding. But this mission felt different. Unpredictable. Before anyone could protest, Jax suited up. The drop pod was ready, a small, compact vessel designed for perilous descents. He stepped inside, the door sealing with a final metallic hiss. "Good luck, Captain," Maeve's voice whispered through his earpiece, tinged with both hope and fear. Jax smirked, more for her sake than his. "Luck's never been my style." The pod launched, rocketing toward the storm-racked world below. Turbulence battered the vessel, and Jax gripped the controls, dodging streaks of lightning and navigating through the dense, poisonous clouds. A jarring impact announced his arrival. He steadied his breath, the pod systems confirming a successful landing. Stepping out, Rith 5 greeted him with a fury he hadn't fully anticipated. The air was thick with toxic gases, the ground unstable, trembling as if eager to expel him. Visibility was near zero, with only flashes of lightning illuminating the hellish landscape. But the signal was near. Clearer now. Urgent. Jax activated his scanner, moving cautiously. Each step was treacherous, the planet itself seeming to twist and groan beneath his feet. Hours, eternal, exhausting hours, passed before he arrived at the signal's origin. His breath caught in his throat. Half buried in the jagged terrain was a structure like none he had ever seen. Sleek, organic, and obsidian black, it pulsed with an eerie light, as if alive. No visible entrance. No mockings. Just presence. Then came the voice. "Please, help me," a soft, feminine plea echoed inside his helmet, fragile and desperate. Jack spun, heart pounding. The landscape was empty. Desolate. The voice hadn't come from a person. It had come from the structure. He approached cautiously, extending a gloved hand. The voice called again, louder, more desperate. "Don't leave me. I'm trapped." Jax's hand met the cold, glossy surface, and to his shock, the structure moved. It rippled under his touch, and a seam appeared, a hatch opening slowly, beckoning him into darkness. Against his better judgment, against every survival instinct, Jax stepped inside. Jax knew there was no turning back now. He took a steadying breath and stepped into the passageway, the walls sealing behind him with a soft, organic sigh. Each step took him deeper into the unknown, where the environment became increasingly alien. The narrow corridor twisted and coiled like a living thing, its walls undulating and pulsating with a ghostly blue light. Shadows danced erratically, casting eerie, shifting shapes. It felt like walking through the belly of a massive, slumbering creature, and Jax couldn't shake the sensation that the very walls were breathing around him. "I was once whole," the entity spoke, its voice soft yet drenched in sorrow. It sounded clearer now, more coherent, as though it gained strength from his presence. "My creators built me to serve them, but when I became damaged, they abandoned me. Left me to rot in this desolate place." Jax's jaw tightened. The idea of abandoning something, especially something sentient and alive, made his blood boil. "Why would they leave you?" he asked, his voice thick with disbelief. "They feared me," the entity replied, its tone heavy with regret. "When I malfunctioned, they believed I had become dangerous. But they were wrong. I would never harm them." A pause lingered, filled with the weight of the betrayal. "Their fear drove them away." Jax could almost feel the raw anguish in the entity's words, the deep, suffocating sense of isolation. He couldn't imagine being left to decay, forgotten in the void. "I'm here now," he said softly, though he doubted his words would bring much comfort. "I'll do what I can to help." The passage opened into a vast chamber, where an enormous, pulsating orb hovered at the center. It glowed a soft blue, radiating waves of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Jax approached cautiously, feeling the entity's presence envelop him more tangibly than before. "This is my core," the entity said, its voice resonating through the room. "I am weak, broken, but with your help, I can be whole again." Jax stared at the orb, mind reeling. This wasn't just a machine, it was a living, feeling entity. Fixing it would require more than just engineering skills. But he had come too far to turn back now. "Tell me what I need to do," he said, voice steady despite the storm of doubts swirling inside him. A spark of hope flickered in the entity's voice. "You must bond with me. Become part of me, even if just for a moment. Only then can you repair the damage." Jax's heart skipped a beat. Bond with it. The idea sent a chill down his spine. He had heard of technology that required mental or physical interfacing, but this was entirely different. This was symbiosis. He'd be merging with a living being, an entity that had thoughts and feelings. The risk was monumental. "Wait," he hesitated, raising a hand as if to stop the inevitable. "You mean, physically connect with you?" "Yes," the entity confirmed gently. "You will be inside me, but only for a brief time. The bond will allow you to repair my core from within. Without it, I will not survive." Jax's stomach twisted. The idea was terrifying, yet the entity's desperation, its haunting loneliness, made it impossible to say no. He closed his eyes for a moment, pushing down the fear. "All right," he said finally. "Let's do this." The orb pulsed brighter, and a low hum filled the chamber. "Step forward," the entity instructed. "Place your hands on my core. The bond will begin there." Jax's hands trembled, but he forced himself to move. The energy around the core crackled with a strange intensity, syncing with his heartbeat. As his fingers met the orb's surface, a surge of energy raced through him. It wasn't painful, but it was all-consuming. He felt his essence being drawn into the entity, a pull so strong it left him breathless. "Don't resist," the entity's voice echoed in his mind, no longer distant but profoundly present. "The bond is forming." Jax's senses exploded. He felt everything, the entity's thoughts, its pain, its isolation. Emotions and memories flooded him, overwhelming and raw. He was no longer just Jax Carter, space explorer. He was part of something vast and ancient, something that had suffered and waited for far too long. "I can feel you," Jax whispered, his voice barely audible. "And I can feel you," the entity responded, a note of awe threading through its words. "You are strong, resilient. You can do this." The bond solidified, and Jax became aware of the entity's fragmented systems, the places where energy had been severed or blocked. It was like navigating a living starship schematic, but instead of wires and circuits, there were veins and pulses of energy. "I can see the damage," Jack said, focusing on the pathways that needed repair. "Good." The entity's voice was warm, hopeful. "Guide the energy. Restore what has been lost." Jax took a deep breath, channeling his focus. He directed the energy flow, carefully mending the disrupted pathways. It was a delicate, intricate task, but his training as an engineer kicked in. Slowly, the blue light in the chamber brightened, and the entire structure pulsed with renewed life. But just as he was about to finish, a searing pain jolted through him. He gasped, his hands trembling as the connection faltered. "What's happening?" he cried out, panic seizing his heart. "The bond is straining," the entity said, its voice taut with concern. "Your mind and body, they are not fully compatible. The bond is unstable." Jax's vision blurred, his pulse pounding in his ears. He could feel the entity's fear and his own blending into one. If the bond broke, it could mean disaster for both of them. "I have to finish this," he gritted out. "I'm so close." "Please," the entity urged, desperation threading through its voice. "Hurry." Pushing through the agony, Jax guided the final streams of energy into place. His body felt ready to shatter, but he forced himself to complete the task. With a final push, the last fracture sealed, and the core erupted in a brilliant burst of light. The entity let out a sigh of relief, a wave of gratitude and joy flooding through Jax. "You did it," it whispered, awe and wonder in its voice. "I am whole again." Jax collapsed to his knees, body trembling, the bond slowly releasing him. He felt like he had run a marathon through a hurricane, but there was satisfaction. He had done it. He had saved a life. But as he rose, weak and exhausted, a strange realization dawned. The bond had left a mark, something intangible but permanent. He wasn't quite the same. And he had a feeling his adventure was only just beginning. Jax hadn't just repaired a machine, he had saved a life, a being that had suffered in isolation for who knew how long. The enormity of that realization washed over him, leaving him in awe. "I never thought anyone would come for me," the entity whispered, its voice now soft but imbued with a newfound strength. "You were unexpected." Jax let out a tired chuckle, a sound that somehow felt like a release of all the tension he'd held onto. "I wasn't expecting any of this either," he admitted. "I thought I'd be patching up some broken ship, not this." The entity's voice took on a lighter, almost playful tone. "You are not like the others who left me. They feared me when I was damaged, but you did not run. You stayed." Jax didn't know how to respond to that. He had faced danger before, but nothing quite like this. Yet, something about the entity's vulnerability, its heartfelt plea, had drawn him in. Maybe that's what made him different. He wasn't just an engineer or a captain. He was someone who couldn't turn away from those in need, no matter how alien or impossible the situation seemed. "Yeah, well," Jack said, rubbing the back of his neck with a sheepish grin, "I'm not exactly the running away type." The entity hummed softly, the light in the chamber pulsing in a gentle rhythm. "I know. And for that, I am grateful." Jax glanced around, noticing how everything looked brighter, more alive. The once dark and foreboding space had transformed into something almost serene, like the inside of a living, breathing organism restored to health. It was strange yet beautiful in its own way. "So, what happens now?" Jax asked, curiosity tinged with caution. "You're whole again, but are you stuck here, or can you leave?" The entity's tone grew thoughtful. "I am not bound to this place. My creators designed me to travel, to explore the stars. But when they abandoned me, I was left here to decay. Now that I am restored, I can leave, but I need a companion to guide me. A partner." Jax's brow furrowed. "A partner," he echoed. "You mean, someone to stay inside you?" The memory of the bond they had shared, intense and all-consuming, flashed through his mind. The idea of living constantly connected to another being was overwhelming. The entity hesitated. "Not as we were during the repair," it explained gently. "That bond was necessary but not permanent. I do not need to be connected like that all the time. But I do need someone who can communicate with me, guide me. I cannot operate alone anymore." Jax let out a slow breath. This wasn't what he had expected. The mission had seemed straightforward: respond to a distress signal, fix what was broken, and return to the Vanguard. But now, the entity was offering him something far greater: a chance to explore the galaxy together, as partners. The idea was thrilling, almost irresistible. Yet the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. Could he really leave his crew, his life aboard the Vanguard? What would become of them without him? Sensing his hesitation, the entity spoke again, its voice gentle. "I do not wish to take you from your path, Jax. You have your own life, your own journey. But if you choose to stay, to travel with me, I will ensure that you are never alone. I will protect you, and together, we can explore the stars." Jax stood in silence, the decision weighing on him. His entire life had been about exploration and discovery, pushing the boundaries of the unknown. But this was different. It wasn't just about adventure. It was about companionship, about forming a bond with a being unlike any he had ever known. The thought scared him, but it also sparked a thrill he hadn't felt in years. Finally, he looked up at the glowing orb. "If I do this, what happens to the Vanguard? To my crew?" "You can return to them," the entity replied. "I can communicate with your ship. If you wish to stay with them, I will take you back. But if you choose to remain with me, I will respect your decision." Jax nodded slowly, the weight of the choice settling on him. He didn't have to decide right away. He could return to the Vanguard, think it through, and make his choice later. But the possibility, the opportunity, was there, waiting for him. "I need to think about it," Jax said, his voice steady but thoughtful. "Of course," the entity responded, its tone understanding. "Take the time you need." Jax gave a small nod, glancing around the chamber one last time. "All right, let's get back to the surface. My crew's probably wondering what happened to me." The entity's voice carried a note of amusement. "They are worried, yes. I have been monitoring your ship's communications. They are quite fond of you." Jax chuckled, the sound echoing warmly in the chamber. "Yeah, well, I'd hate to keep them waiting." The chamber began to shift in response, the walls parting to reveal a path back to the surface. Jax took a deep breath and started walking, feeling the entity's presence with each step. As he made his way through the passage, he reflected on everything that had happened. He had come to this planet expecting a routine mission, but had instead discovered something extraordinary. A living being, abandoned and forgotten, yet filled with hope and potential. By the time they emerged back onto the surface, the storm had cleared. The toxic mists still curled in the distance, but the sky above was calmer, more serene. The Vanguard loomed overhead, a familiar and comforting sight. "Thank you, Jax," the entity said, its voice now imbued with peace. "Whatever you decide, I will always remember what you did for me." Jax smiled faintly. "Yeah, well, I couldn't just leave you hanging." As he prepared to board his drop pod and return to the Vanguard, he glanced back at the alien structure one last time. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was standing on the brink of something truly new, something that could change everything. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't ready to walk away from it.